Yeah, this is Bruce. Tim, feel free to get started. We've got the optimized teamwork 10 practical use cases. For those that are on the attending this month, do know that we did provide an introductory Teams 101 webinar a few weeks back, and hopefully some of you were able to attend that. If not, we have that up on our blog site and to kind of catch up on things. But we thought we'd dive a little deeper on, what are people using Teams for? And what are some applications of this technology we could see that are going to help break down, everyday common practical use, right, within organizations. Tim, why don't you
I'm
get us
back.
started? All right, perfect. Get us started on our practical use cases here.
Oh boy. Let's see. There we go. So a very light agenda today. Just really going through the 10 use cases. So we're going to jump right in with a poll.
Yeah, I can kind of head up this one. So, recently, obviously in a lot of news channels, you're seeing a lot of information about the CDC talking about workplace preparation, right? And one of the things that they're asking about is, are workplaces prepared for employees to work remotely? And this is not meant to, cause any concern, but more of a preparation perspective. So we simply wanted to ask, are you prepared to have staff work remotely? And will they be up to full snuff with regards to their capabilities and their ability to communicate, collaborate, and continue doing work? Oftentimes, that obviously takes shape in terms of a conferencing solution, or in terms of ability to screen share, certainly ability to rally around documents, things of that nature. I think it's a pretty quick poll, Samantha. We can close that down, obviously, for those that are able to hit yes or no, or we're not sure. Great, and we'll share the results now. Great. So, at least on a small sample scale, we can see here that 78% of us are feeling pretty good about our capabilities to deliver remote services and have people continue to work from a remote perspective. So thanks for sharing thoughts. Let's just kind of get the gears grinding here as we walk through some of the use cases. We'll talk later about, some potential use cases where this technology can be used for remote conferencing.
All right, back to me. So our first use case initially was a business review process, and that means different things to different people. We recently did a website migration, so it would have been our website review process. So, fill in the blank, what process do you, need to do a review of? And typically this process would be done through, you start with an email, you send out the agenda, maybe you attach a spreadsheet, you have your meeting, you collect everybody's spreadsheets, you put together a chart, you share your notes, you compile a presentation. And what we're trying to show here is how using Teams, you can have all those tools in one location. So everybody's on the same page, you're not duplicating effort. So
And I
any
think,
thoughts
yeah,
before we jump
yeah,
over
my
to the
only
demo?
thoughts. Yeah, my only thoughts is, this could be something as simple as a sales proposal process, which I think every organization has a sales proposal process right before it goes out the door. What do you do to get it out there? Or as Tim's noting, it can aggregate a number of different sources of data. I think last in the Teams 101 webinar, we gave the example of how to produce the PowerPoint that we did, right? We had 3 or 4 people that were collaborating around what to show around Teams and so forth. And it was a multi-tool, multi-person effort, and the webinar PowerPoint was the outcome document. So whether it be a proposal and a relatively simple process, or something that requires multiple tools and people, we think that this process that Tim will show you is kind of case example number 1.
So what we've done is we've created a demo tenant in Office 365. And so I was able to kind of duplicate some of the things that we're doing in-house to keep it, something that's shareable, but still maintain some privacy. So right off the bat, we've got just a file share and here's where we're going to put the pages that need to be reviewed. So I actually created a flow, which is now Power Automate. So if I was to add a page to this folder, so if I upload, I'll just pick anything. Let's go find something small. And so the workflow is going to send an email. So I've actually logged in to email on a web page. There, I just got the ding. So here I added a file to a folder on a Teams site, and with Microsoft Flow, it was able to send me out a notification that a file was added and it needs to be reviewed. So just a simple use. It's a no-code effort. Next step in that process after the files have been added is to set up some tasks. So we used Planner for that. And it's just an example of some of the blog pages that we're working on. We have people that have to review it. Here's the tab that shows the flow component, and pop up here and just show there's one flow. And just another way you can access this if you wanted to change who it's going to or what the rules are involved with that. And this is all GUI. It's very simple to do. And then the final tab I have here is just an example of the actual page that we use for this process. So there's a lot more on this page because, and there's people doing it. So Sam and Bruce and Adam, so they're all assigned tasks in this process. So it's a pretty simple, straightforward example, but you fill in the blank with what your process is, and here's just some simple tools that you can use.
Yeah, my only comment on that would just be for those that weren't here for the Teams 101, the idea of flow or planner, those are included tools of Office 365. So really what Teams is doing is just kind of being a good aggregate and a good, I'll call it a front-end application to a lot of back-end services. So we like to call it the Office 365 app because ultimately it's pulling together a lot of the collaboration features of all of the pieces and parts of Office 365. One thing we didn't note as we kind of move back to the deck is, just so you know, we have 10 case studies we're anticipating going through here. This was number 1. So, it might be worthwhile from your perspective to jot down, hey, that process was good. I could see us using that for X or Y internally. Maybe make some notes to yourself, what audience would that serve at your organization? What's most broken? If this isn't a process that's broken for you at your organization today, then, let's move on to case study number 2. We're going to spend maybe 2 or 3 minutes per case study. And as we kind of move into here to number 2, Tim's got a poll for us here.
So this leads us into our next example. It'd be hosting some type of an annual event and using a Teams site to coordinate that effort.
Holiday party, trade show, conferences, maybe a sales meeting that you do annually or biannually, whatever it might be. We felt that those annual events or those things that you put some planning into might be a worthwhile use case here. Yes, no, not sure. I'll give you.
So people will stop responding. Oh, there we go. One more. People do.
Yeah, let's close the poll and check the results. Great. Yeah, most organizations do have an annual event. Presumably, you're aware of what those events are, and maybe you have multiple ones. Again, jot down which ones might be appropriate for whether there's a situation where it might be appropriate for you to do a fair amount of planning around that and get everyone on the same page. So, Tim, why don't you show us an example of how Teams can be used from a planning with regards to an annual event?
So. Actually saw someone do a demo of this, and I think from the simplest standpoint, you can use this as a file repository to roll things forward from year to year. So, what facilities did we use in 2019? Grab those files that are appropriate, throw those in the 2020 folder. A more advanced use of this would be something like a third-party app which you can plug in called Poly. So,
We
what
need to share
food
your
options?
screen too, Tim.
Oh,
I think it's
she needs to stop the poll. That's what it
there we
is.
go. Yeah.
There we go. So here would be the files. So again, just a folder representing your last event, a folder for the next event. And then here's where we do something a little more advanced where you do a poll. So what do you want for food options? So if I submit my vote, I already had somebody else vote. We'll see if that'll update. There we go. So following that, same theme, you have your speakers, what information did you use in 2019? You want to roll forward. Who are your sponsors? How about a theme? So let's do another poll here. We're going to do exceeding the vision in 2020. And there are options so you can not show the results until all the polls are in. So a whole bunch of flexibility with a tool like this. And it's just a free add-on that, you just add a tab. Now we have the ability to poll, and it's specific to, that area you're working on. So just a great way to group all that information, roll it forward year to year, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Aggregating opinions, keeping ongoing threads or chats around the topic, files, emails, attachments from emails, all of that can, having a folder that could be emailed. So you've got a sudden idea or an attachment, here's a vendor proposal for our annual conference, boom, forward it to the annual conference, and it could show up as an email within this team site also. Those are all ideas as to how to keep the information together as a group tries to move forward. Obviously, equally, as we showed in Teams 101, this can be internal folks, as well as you can extend this out to guest access to specific email addresses. So if you had outside catering or external vendors that were involved, they equally could participate in a Teams session and team site.
All right, so our next use case would be project management. So I grabbed this from another slide, and it just kind of shows all the different things you can do around project management. So there's a lot of information that needs to be shared. There's a lot of pieces that are moving. The demo I watched, the person was actually working out of state, and back at the home office, there was this whiteboard, but she would only see it when she came in town to see it. So you can create a virtual whiteboard, you have your persistent chat, you have all those tools in place. So we've got a pretty sophisticated demo for this one because the demo site that we spun up had a lot of information already pre-populated in it. So there's some neat things here. If you look at this design channel, this usability priorities is actually a Word document. So you can see when it opens up, you'll get some of the header from Word with the ability to modify the document style with fonts and sizes and those kinds of things. There we go. So it's just a simple, Word document on a tab, get everybody on the same page. If we go to the market plan, there's a lot more use here of things like planner. So real simple to add a task, demo the test. So I can assign this to somebody. You can add that task. And so now here it is. Product roadmap. Here's an example of an Excel spreadsheet in a tab. So they've collected a bunch of different information. They've got the different, worksheets. If we look at the event plan, Now here's another planner within the same channel, but with a different focus. Another area here would be the product brochure, which is a PowerPoint. So here it is right here. So now you've got the brochure in the channel with all that information, keeping everybody on the same page. So a ton of information. Bruce had mentioned before the ability to email. So right from this specific channel, I can grab this email address. Here it is. So if I had information that I had in Outlook, I could just copy this email address, put it in my Outlook, and then when I went to the Files tab, there would be an email folder, and those documents would show up right there. Any other thoughts, Bruce?
Just the only thoughts I'd say is, for those that haven't used Planner before, I think you saw, Tim adding a task in there, and from there, obviously, emails go out to the where the responsibilities lie. We know this because we use this internally. If there are updates to the task, you're kind of always looking at the latest dashboard. You can also have individualized threads. So around that task, you might say, I was able to do it, but certain things, so there can be conversations around that are captured as part of the task. So especially as a group, if you have 3 or 4 people that might be assigned to a review task or things of that nature, it's helpful to kind of see all the information aggregated in one spot. Obviously, this is like a board that allows you to see the status of projects and tasks over that time. So certainly not meant to be a PMO, but has all the capabilities to certainly organize and to some degree standardize the way that you're executing projects, which as organizations, I think just about everybody has projects that they're undergoing, and usually multiple projects. So project management, another use case. Great.
Yep. So this one is near and dear to me because one of my tasks here was to create sites for some of our customers. So, we're managed services is one of our branches, and so we have a lot of interaction. We share a lot of information with some of our customers. So I created a bunch of these sites for our customers, and let me just walk you through what that looks like. I did a mock-up of that. So starting, want to make sure everybody's on the same page. We all have the same contacts. So I was able to just extract out of our project management software that we use in-house the contacts that we have on file. So I put that on as a tab. The customer then can see what we have in our database. Our engineers that are going on site know who to contact. I added a locations tab, and I just pulled typically from the vendor's website their locations. So you're going on site, you want to make sure you have the right address. The location tab's right there. For some of our customers, we have a lot of engineers on site. It's a regular basis, or if we have a project, we've got several people. So it's able to get an export of our engineer schedules into a spreadsheet, which I then put into a SharePoint list, and that's being presented in a calendar view. So a lot of different technologies and pieces, but the end result is something that's very simple, right? As the customer, I want to know who's going to be here and when, and here it is. So very easy to reproduce, very easy to automate. We just have to, have that export done out of the one program, and then we can use Flow to manage all the other pieces to have this calendar automatically populated. So managed services, a big part of what we do. So we have some monthly reports for our SIM customers and Pulse, and I was able to use Flow again. We had the email address of the channel added to the SIM tool. So every month it would email the report, and then I used Flow to take it and rename it and put it in the folder. So the customer gets emailed the reports, but it just ends up in this, inbox with all these other things. So we had an incident back last September. I wonder what the report said. Well, you go to the SIM reports folder and it's labeled with, September 2019, very easy to find. And, once those initial pieces are put in place, there's nothing to do. It just works. In case you're not sure what services you have, I was able to just grab this from the contract. I put it into a wiki page, so it's just a picture inserted right into there, and then some important links. So if you want to be able to log into our ticketing system and see what tickets you have open, or you want to log into our monitoring system and see, the equipment that we're monitoring, if there's any alerts or anything going like that, all in one location. File repository for network documentation. So we have diagrams of your environment or photos of your server room. And then a big piece here would be the projects. So, here are the projects we're working on, and, we can put the original proposal in there. We can put notes in there. If there's any kind of documentation that needs to go along with that, all that information in the same location. Guest access. So, you can limit who has the ability to see that. Our engineers, they all have access to it and they can keep things up to date. So just an example of Extranet sharing with a customer.
Yeah, no real thoughts on that, Tim, other than, it's our goal to, it's our goal, and I think it should be every organization's goal to be easy to work with, right? So I think from that perspective, the aggregation of a bunch of different avenues of information, if you will, alerting, help desk tickets, documentation, calendars, aggregating all that information and providing them one spot is an attempt to make things easier. And do you have situations like that for yourselves where you interface with customers where you could make things easier? So, thanks, Tim. From a timing perspective, we're moving on to case study number 5, and timing is, we're halfway through the webinar, so things are looking pretty good.
Real quick before we hop over to number 5, we have a question regarding the template.
Sure.
Someone asked, do you see yourself creating a template of this to create another team quickly?
So for our customer sites, I built one, and then each time I added another customer, when you create a team site, you have the option of using another site as a template. So I was just able to change the name, but it's the same structure. There were some tweaks that you have to do, calendar and some of those other things, but the basic structure with the channels and a lot of that content is already in place. So it was really easy to reproduce.
We like repeatable.
Yeah. So I saw a demo of this, and it just struck me as what a great way to get, the team's ball rolling. It's a 2-person team. It's an executive and their assistant. It's getting them on the same page, getting their information in the same location. And the example I watched, the executive was on the road 90% of the time, and the assistant was in the office 100% of the time. And after they put a Teams site in place, the assistant was, working 4 days from home and coming in when they knew that that executive was going to be in the office. So it just increased their productivity and got them on the same page. So just some simple things to help with that.
And for the CDC, got them prepared to work remotely.
Yeah. So having that persistent chat so that you can scroll back up through that list, and, it was a week ago, it was a month ago, I remember they said something, and it's all recorded right here. So text messages go away, right? Emails get lost in the clutter, but a persistent chat is a great tool to make sure you're on the same page. Simple sharing of files. So we're working on this presentation, or I need some help with this budget. You are both joining a meeting, but you have your assistant taking notes. So I created a OneNote here, right? And you can organize all your notes. It's shared through this team site. You can open up OneNote if you prefer. Keeping track of my expenses on my trip. So I just threw a spreadsheet in a tab. So this is editable right here. Gifts, I'm over budget, so maybe I won't spend the $85. Okay, I'm back under budget. So I just thought it was a great way to keep two people on the same page and start that ball rolling for teams to get people to understand what they can actually do with that. Any other thoughts, Bruce?
No, I think that's, in general, there's a number of things. Obviously, you'd have to work with the two-person team to determine what's appropriate for them and what needs to be shared. But there's a lot of versatility here. Just trying to provide a few examples.
All right. So, education. This is a big topic here, and a lot of ways we could go. If there are any education-specific people listening, there's a whole different version of Teams just for education. And it lets you do things with class lists and assignments. That's not really their focus today. It's more of internal education. So I think we've got some good examples here. We just signed an agreement with a partner to offer training. So their name is Clip Training. And so I've got some great examples of how you can incorporate something like your own learning management system into a team site like this. Just to start out with, I added a tab here, which is a web page that has Microsoft's, their training. So they've got a bunch of videos on how to get started. And this is just all free tools that are out there that you can go and access. But again, it's here in our education team site, and it's just a tab for the team specific stuff. If you want to look at Clip Training, say we want to do flow specifically. So I just added again, it's a website, so it's your LMS, but it's within your team site, and here are all the lessons that are related to Microsoft Flow. Some of the tools that you can use within this, you could create a lesson plan. So I don't think that, sharing is going to be important in our organization, so I can leave that one out and just have the first 10. And then here's another example here of OneDrive. So taking an outside tool, incorporating in your team site. When we were kind of planning this, I was looking at some other third-party apps. So how about a tool that will let you do, brainstorming. So I found MindMizer. I'm like, it's, mind map. We've got all these great tools, all this stuff here. I don't know how to use it. I found a YouTube video. So I added a tab with a YouTube video of how to use the MindMizer app to brainstorm. So I thought this is just super, creative way of putting all that information in one place. And one of the earliest things that I had come across on, how to get teams rolling, well, why don't you track your utilization? So Microsoft built a Power BI dashboard that pulls your usage right out of Office 365. So here's, this is using demo data. So there's a lot to look at here, but I can zoom right in onto the Teams part of it and track, month over month, enabled versus active, and it's, channels, calls, all the different pieces of Teams all broken out, and so you can get an idea of how your organization is doing implementing something like Teams.
Tim, great examples. I mean, I think as IT professionals, if that's your role today, I mean, I think increasingly they're looking to you to develop or come up with training plans, right? It's no longer technology just for technology's sake. Oftentimes there's a rollout. There's how are we going to get our users to adopt this? What's the training plan? What's what's the learning plan? How are we doing on the rollout, right? The tracking. So a little bit of project management, but ultimately it's also how is this being perceived and used? What's the two-way feedback mechanism that you have to say, oh yeah, our users love this new stuff that we're rolling out, or they're having challenges. You can imagine the site integrating support tickets and maybe with a filter for specific filters around that application so that you could see, here's the common problems we're having, things of that nature. So in any case, I think learning, Tim has this labeled as an education site. You might think of it as a training site or an adoption site, whatever it might be. Just know that, this is Teams can kind of be the front end and the cornerstone for that component, whether it be an IT-based rollout or even a ERP-based rollout that might require some knowledge management, some bidirectional feedback, and some adoption services. So, thanks, Tim.
All right. So we've created a HR employee portal in SharePoint, and one of the things that we're working on is moving those pieces over into a Teams site. So we have onboarding, we've got performance, employee first day. So these are some of the big bucket things that we've created some tools around. And then you can take that further. I found an attendance spot. I'll show that to you. There's forms and workflow, all these different pieces. So creating a portal for your employees with information specific to what is important to them. So this attendance thing I thought was really neat. So over here you see this attendance, and it's a bot. I think the low end it's $2 per person. So if I just type start here, it will show me a bunch of things that I can. What do you want to do today? I want more information on time off. So then it'll answer me, okay, to apply for time off, type, okay, well, how about I'm sick today? So confirm, yep. And so now I set up an approver. So if I switch over, which is going to be difficult with all these windows. Here it is. So now I'm logged in to a web-based version of Teams on the demo site with another user, and here is request for approval. So Tim has requested sick day today. So as a user, I'll get a notification, and I'm going to approve that. And now if I switch back over, I can show you on the Teams site that I've set up a calendar, and that sick day will be automatically populated right into that calendar. So I think I spent maybe 10 minutes playing around with this. You go up here to the plus, you want to add an app. I searched for attendance, I found the attendance bot, and then, it's really intuitive because you kind of can chat with it like it's a person, and it will respond back to you. And I was able to set up an approver, and I put in some vacation time, and sick days was really easy. So just a simple way to implement something that gets really complicated, right? Tracking attendance. And then just another area I want to show is another Power BI tool, a dashboard for your human resources. So tracking new hires. We've got different tabs down here. If you want to look at bad hires, a new hire scorecard. So just some real powerful things that you can do with the data you already have and just get it into the people's hands so that they can see what's going on in your organization.
Every
A lot of stuff
organization, every organization has an HR department, or at least someone operating in an HR capacity. And so, this is highly relevant, to usually large audiences. There are usually HR related applications that are probably already out there for, things like payroll and so forth. And certainly you can imagine aggregating some of those to make some of this. But our goal is, has always been to make the employee aspect and certainly the self-service aspect be as easy as possible. So things like organizational calendars. So Tim showed a calendar that was kind of personal relative to vacation requests or otherwise, but imagine an organizational calendar with birthdays or hire dates and anniversaries and things of that hiring anniversaries on there, or major events. So organizationally, you can imagine this calendar getting expounded. That's what we've got, and we're porting into Teams format. Also, things like approval and flow. Tim showed you a bot that's doing that, but imagine, similar to our current forms, vacation requests and other things that might have to go through some approval process, similar for policies that HR might have all in one location, but oftentimes people need to review and accept, and that has an approval process, if you will, or at least a checkoff process. So again, just trying to aggregate all the parts that oftentimes are not well covered, not well serviced, for employees to be more self-sufficient, take the load off HR, and ultimately reduce some costs potentially at your organization. So good stuff, Tim. And
All right.
hopefully that's use case 7. So we'll move into 8. We've got 10 or 15 minutes here. Good.
So in terms of marketing, this was one of the first sites we launched internally, and we ported a lot of, everything over from, we were using SharePoint into a Teams site. So I was able to copy some of the structure and populate some of the information so you can kind of get an idea of how we're using it. So right off the bat, here is our marketing calendar. So it's a spreadsheet in a tab, but we've kind of laid out, month over month what we've got going on. We've got an area for employee info. So this is just our general structure, and then what we've got in each of these areas. So bios and photos, so that, we're doing some more marketing around ourselves and our team, trying to, once a month promote an employee and kind of show off their skill set. So the blogs are a big part of our marketing effort. So here's a tab right in, this marketing channel that has, it's our website right in that tab. Something we haven't talked about yet, another tool from Microsoft, is Forms. So here's a simple request for funding form. So it's something we've got in our current marketing site. It's real easy to fill this information out. It dumps into a spreadsheet. There's a lot of funding from Microsoft, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through and information to track. I grabbed another Power BI example of a sales report. So again, something you can pull out of your existing system, and you can have it represented here in easy to view format. And then just some information that people need and can never find. So where are those latest presentations? Where are the latest sell sheets? So just organizing it, putting the information in there. The neat thing is, you can click on it right here and the document opens right up. So, one of our offerings is a multi-factor authorization in a day. And we're reworking some of the format of some of these. And so here are the latest ones. And, sales guys, maybe they're as technical, will have no problem going to the marketing team site, to the sales sheet folder channel, and then pulling this document up.
Probably worth noting, Tim, at this time, again, a lot of you may not have been on our Teams 101, but with aggregating some of this information into teams, one of the other things you're doing is, as we're speaking about MFA here, or multi-factor authentication, you are essentially, if you're using that aspect relative to your Office 365, you're protecting this data, right? This data is now sitting behind MFA credentialed logins, right? People that you trust another factor, if you will, with regards to their login. You also have data loss prevention capabilities. So if that data is going out a channel you don't want it to go out, or even if someone's posting it in a team, so you can use data loss prevention tools that are available with Office 365 to prevent the posting of that data or the leak of that data. Equally, up on top, you'll see Tim's got that search capability, right? So now you're enabling, by putting data in this spot, enterprise search capability. So what was that presentation that we did a month ago that, even if people aren't drilling into the right channel, they have a chance of finding the information because you've now enabled some enterprise search capabilities. So those are a couple nuances that are outside of the case studies, but they're Teams related features from the Teams 101 webinar that we could bring into this specific case study. So thanks, Tim.
Sure. So here we are at another poll. Yep.
Yeah, we like a good poll system that provides chat and presence. So presence obviously is, for those that don't know, is, I'll call it red, yellow, green. Like red, they're not available. Yellow, they are. I mean, using simplified colors there, but hopefully a system that provides that sort of presence throughout all of Office and on your computer. And sometimes people are using either existing Microsoft programs like Skype, third-party applications, or as we noted in our Teams 101, some people already had some Teams rollouts going and might be using Teams for that. But other organizations might not see value in it for that communication channel, and certainly might not have deployed that also. So you'll know why we're asking this question in just a second. All right, good. So, a lot of the organizations, doing quick math there, it's about 73% of you are using IM and presence in some regard, and that's great. It's a good communication channel. Those that aren't, stay tuned. Here we go into a little demonstration and use case number 9.
So number 9 is conferencing. So thought I'd just do a real quick demo showing you how to do an impromptu meeting. So if I go to my calendar and I click on Meet Now, I can start a meeting. And so invite someone. So this is the other user that I'm logged in as, so I'm going to invite him to the meeting. And now here it is, right? Let's join that meeting. I probably should mute the microphones. And so now I've just done a real quick ad hoc meeting. And I'm doing video too.
Look at you.
Video. Yeah, look at me.
And a lot of you, obviously we're on a conference today, right? We're using GoToMeeting, and if you're wondering why we're using GoToMeeting to present Teams, our contract for GoToMeeting continues, and Teams kind of wasn't there yet when we were going out to look at conferencing solutions 8 months ago. And B, it's also difficult to present Teams within Teams. As you click one area to start a call or to mute yourself, it's difficult to demonstrate the Teams aspects within that. So just some thoughts, but GoToMeeting, WebEx, Skype, Zoom, those tools can be replaced with Teams, and we you have to look at your needs and goals for their capability to do so. Certainly IM and presence are the beginning portions of conferencing, and Tim's going to advanced aspects of it now with a screen share, whiteboarding, and so forth.
Yeah, so that was just a real quick example here, how to do an impromptu meeting with 2 people with a shared whiteboard. Let me jump over here to my calendar again. I'll show you how to schedule a meeting. So if I want to schedule a meeting, we're gonna do a demo. And what do we want? Oh, so one of the options you have when you're doing a meeting is, do you want this meeting to be in a channel, in a team site?
Why would that
Put it
matter,
in
Tim? Tell us why that would matter.
So that meeting can be recorded and then live within that team site. So Bruce and I met and went over the presentation. Adam wasn't available, but he wanted to go back and watch that meeting we had to see what we talked about. So he can go back to our team site, and right there under post is going to be a link which is going to have that meeting that we recorded. So you pick a team, you pick a channel, you can invite someone to your meeting. And what I really like here is that this will automatically populate times that the two of you are available. You can pick a building, you can pick a room, and all this is done within the Teams client. You don't have to get out into Outlook. You don't have to email people and find out when they're available and any other stuff.
And one of the things I guess I would note is those meetings are being recorded using Microsoft Stream, right? So an included application, many people are not taking advantage of, but the Stream service, again, kind of gets used by teams, again, to aggregate and pull together some of the Office 365 collaboration stuff into a Teams interface. The other thing I'd point out is from a conferencing perspective, a lot of people think of their GoToMeetings and WebEx as maybe sometimes their external facing solution, and they really don't have a internal facing solution, or they, I think that's where Skype kind of got good grounding, as people were using Skype for that. Teams is an excellent internal collaboration meeting environment, going well beyond presence and chat and into, as you're seeing, full video, screen shares, recording, chats, all of the conferencing tools all in one nice package. So, where some third-party tools might be just really good for chat or presence, this is, as you can see, much more than that, all integrated into a client. So. And obviously we'll go in more depth about this, and Tim will announce our next webinars at the conclusion of number 10 case study here, but we intend to go into much more depth about this.
Our final use case is replacing your phone system with Teams. We're going to do a whole webinar just on the conferencing and the voice. So this is just kind of a teaser to, show you what the capabilities are, just to kind of throw that topic out there. Once again, today, I'm using my Teams voice capabilities for this presentation, because as soon as we clicked start the presentation, my client crashed. And when I rejoined, there was no audio connection. So I had to fire up my Teams client, call the number, put in the code, and join that way. So I guess this is a testimonial to how good the quality is, because I'm using a Bluetooth headset connected to my laptop, using the Teams voice client calling into this meeting.
Yeah, so we're finding the Teams reliability to be higher than GoToMeeting. Guess what happens at contract time when it goes to renewal of the GoToMeeting, right? We're looking actively at Teams as our external facing conferencing solution. Not that GoToMeeting, is not industry tested, but Teams is great and has worked out really well. And so for case study number 9, obviously we use Teams internally for conferencing and might soon be using it for external conferencing. Relative to voice and PBX, we ourselves have been a big proponent of voice services through previously Skype and now on Teams. We're fully migrated onto that platform and enjoying the experience. We're ironically finding a lot of customers, their first use case is this one, number 10, voice and PBX replacement. PBXs are expensive, their renewal cycles are, 3, 5, 7 years, or man, if I could get 10 out of it, it would be great, that sort of thing. But those cycles are coming up, and people are already convinced that voice over IP should be sitting on the same network as their LAN. That case was made long ago, back in the 2000s, and then virtualized servers was kind of the next step, and that went around 2010, 2015. Every vendor and their worth their salt, Avaya's and all of those are all virtualizing servers, and then the idea of PBX hosted, right, kind of left the station maybe 5 years ago also, right? There's a lot of vendors out there, the 8x8s and others that are going with hosted voice services. So Teams isn't doing anything revolutionary, but what Teams is doing, and if you believe in Gartner reports, and I think we'll go into this next week, but they're up there on the upper right, and in fact, one of the leaders in the voice unified communication voice piece. So a lot of good things to go through here. This use case is certainly great. I don't know, Tim, if you have a few things to show, but maybe from the client.
I don't really have anything to show,
Yeah.
but just topics we're going to cover, the different devices. So what you're seeing here is a laptop, a phone, and a mobile device. Rooms set up where you have multiple displays and fixed cameras. The whole mobile aspect of it, where you have all the same functionality on your phone, your mobile phone, as you do as your laptop or any other device. And we're going to cover calling plans, what does support look like. So,
Good.
Whole webinar devoted just to this.
Good stuff. And I think that's actually our next one. So I think that's our next slide even. Oh no, we had yeah. So you've seen a lot of use cases here today. I guess we just kind of wanted to get some feedback on what you saw as you internalize this for your organizations. Which one were the kind of the logical use cases? Now, GoToMeeting didn't allow us to put all 10 as options there, so we're just kind of grouping 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10. What do you see as kind of the next step for you as immediate use cases? And thought that would be exciting.
And while we wait for those answers to come rolling through, there are 3 questions in the queue that I thought we could take care of. So the first question was, do all documents and spreadsheets track changes? So that goes back to the previous use case, not number 10.
Tim, I can answer that if you'd like. Yeah, so versioning is turned on by default. Keep in mind that obviously Teams is leveraging SharePoint spaces on the back end, and in these particular spaces, versioning is turned on. You do have the capacity to go back and roll back to major or minor version changes from before.
All right. Second question is, any estimate on savings for PBX replacement in terms of percentage?
I don't. I think it's going to be kind of on a case-by-case basis. I guess what PBX and PBX support costs are one factor. I think another large factor that rolls in here is phones themselves. Phones oftentimes were tied into there, and I think Teams. The costs are well known and can be well illustrated in terms of Teams voice and dial plans that Microsoft offers. And there's some considerations there as to whether you use Microsoft's plans or whether you continue to use your PRI or SIP channels that you may have for communication out of a building. But I think the ability to simplify the world with regards to that system, and the ability to aggregate licensing that you may purchase anyway for maybe other purposes, to extend it into something like Teams and Office, and simply add on a voice or a dial plan, or maybe beginning with just conferencing. Those are 3 individual plan options that could be tagged onto an already existing Office 365 deployment. So Microsoft's got something here, but I don't have a percentage number, but happy to work with whichever customer to develop that.
Okay, and then the final question, When going into a team, is it possible to change the default tab that is opened up that opens up to files instead of posts? So
Tim, why
having
don't
the
you grab that?
default file instead of chat.
It would be nice if you could do that, but you can't.
Yeah, we'd suggest also to go out to user voice, because we also believe that would be a great feature. Yeah, the activity tab, or it's the post tab in the beginning, is oftentimes not the first tab that we want to see either. And you may have noticed Tim oftentimes going in there and having to go click a tab
Right away.
to find the information. So there's a number of things like that. There's also another thing called I think it's called multi-channel, Tim, where it doesn't take you out of what you're presenting to go activate voice aspects. So from a conferencing perspective, we were waiting for that feature before maybe we use Teams for conferencing. But there is something called user voice, where you vote on features that could be improved, and we're actively watching what features are coming into market. So great poll answers on there. As we kind of thought, every organization has projects that they endeavor to undertake, and fully 60% of people are either interested in serving their customers better with a front-facing aggregator like an Extranet, or in doing project management. And we'll kind of dive into that in future with you as an organization. Tim, why don't you keep us going here, and we'll end on time. We need to stop the poll.
Yep. There we go. So where does this leave you? We have a call to action. We have an envisioning readiness process that we can walk through with you, discuss use cases, work with key stakeholders, and help you plan out how to implement something like this.
Yeah, we essentially want to formalize your idea. If you have some ideas as to where you want to get started, just needs to be formalized. Who's the group? What needs to get put in there? What sources of data are you going to aggregate? What does success look like? And then we need to obviously go through some readiness steps to determine, do you have the team's licensing? Is the team's client rolled out? Do you have, who are what roles are going to take place in the management of this team's environment, and again, drive you towards success. So we just kind of want to bottle that up as kind of step one in an envisioning and readiness session, which really can start with a conversation, and then oftentimes is a small fee for getting that undertaken. Tim, we've got two webinars coming up. We're going to continue this 200 level series for those that want to see the 100 level, which was the team's overview. Samantha did share that link in the window and in the chat window. But coming up in 2 weeks, we've got Teams 202, increased teamwork with voice and conferencing. We're going to dedicate 1 hour to that aspect of things. As Tim mentioned, a lot of it will be around the devices, conferencing, how to roll this thing out, what are dial plans, support, and so forth. And then in early April there, we've got how to protect all this with governance and security. There's a lot of dials and wizards in Office 365. There's some that are specific to Teams, and then there's some even generally around document structures and document naming, and as well as around who can create team sites, as an example. So some of that governance is going to be reviewed in a 1 hour webinar deep dive session. All right. Appreciate everyone's attendance, and feel free to contact us at info@peters.com or contact your account manager. Tim and I are available as resources to continue having those chats with you and help you drive your vision for your team's rollout. Thanks all.
Thank you. Yep.